Subaru has a fairly known reputation in the community of how he's supposedly one of the weakest characters in the series and yet is able to accomplish feats of impossible difficulty time and time again. However, while this is a fairly popular and supposedly very foundational idea of what the series is about, I believe that is both a correct and incorrect idea of Subaru's representation and his power that the show is trying to represent here. There's also the aspect of people thinking Subaru is weak in general rather than comparatively to the setting he's being teleported to, which I think is quite ridiculous and thus the reason this video exists. This video intends to be a fairly easy to comprehend analysis on Subaru's capabilities regarding all of his physical fighting options, which are downplayed a number of times simply because Subaru is always in terrible situations that limit his choices, and a terrible lack of resources most of the time, which makes us forget that Subaru is quite strong when looking at the grander scheme of things. But before that, if you have any video suggestions, drop them in the Discord, that's how I'll be collecting all ideas. And if you enjoy this type of content, the goal is 20k, so if you enjoy, sub up. To begin with, this is a fairly simple one for us. We can already see that Subaru is fairly stronger than the average high schooler at his age, given we know from his background that he isn't a regular otaku and actually keeps up with his physique training to maintain his physical strength even prior to him getting isekai'd, with him even being proud of his grip strength of 80 kilograms, which is very impressive for his age. The moment after he gets isekai'd is where things no longer stay grounded though. Subaru seems to have gotten stronger after getting isekai'd, as he was able to easily fight the thugs in Arc 1 before they pulled the knife on Subaru. And if you paid attention, you would also be able to notice that Subaru quite literally created a hole into the wall when he slammed Camberley into it extremely casually, and was even twisted Gaston's hand easily before he was forced to give up. Also noting that this happens to be the very first time Subaru has ever thrown a punch at another person during his lifetime, according to his own narration, and has pretty much zero actual fighting experience. Subaru also during this commented how he had felt as if the world here had around a tenth of the gravity on Earth because of how fluidly he was able to move. And just for confirmation, the gravity for both the ReZero world and Earth are relatively similar, so that wasn't the case. So before we even finish the episode, you could say that Subaru is at least physically stronger than quite literally every human in real life, and this is all from the first episode starting minutes. The next notable thing Subaru does also comes from this arc itself, that being fighting Elsa. I mean, it's obvious that Subaru isn't actually on her level, but rather that Subaru was able to keep up with an Elsa that was playing around, and even was able to intercept her attack on Feld with her knives with a table. I'm sure some of you may be wondering just how was Subaru able to intercept Elsa with a table, considering she's still supposed to be faster than him. That can be sourced to something that is known as the flow method. The flow method is a fairly complicated thing, so it's better to not dive deep into it too many details, but it can easily be understood as using mana to enhance one's body in order to get stronger and to be more durable in fights. This normally requires extensive practice and control, but this can also sometimes be done unconsciously in times of stress, where the gate forces the person to temporarily break their limits. Although once again, Elsa was not serious during this fight. It's still extremely impressive Subaru was able to keep up with her, considering it is stated numerous upon numerous times that Elsa's speed was surpassing sound during this battle, and Subaru was still able to fight with her, and once again with extremely little battle experience compared to the highly experienced Elsa. In Arc 2, Subaru also does impressive things which we'll touch upon slightly. In a fairly memorable scene, Subaru is able to pick up and throw Rom across multiple meters over a group of Rulgrams without much difficulty, and was even able to kill one of Rulgrams in that arc. Right before all of this in the final, Subaru was also able to easily withstand a blow from Rem and her Morningstar that once again created the rocky wall that was behind him without any signs of injury at all, despite having his back turned to where the crater was formed. There's quite literally just a various amount of examples that one could present, as it would be a bit bothersome if I read all of you every single impressive thing Subaru has done, so it's probably best if we stick to being a bit concise with how we present information. So we'll be jumping straight to Arc 5 or Season 3. Subaru got fairly less total focus compared to the last two seasons, but nonetheless, we still have fairly impressive things to judge him based off. While he's fighting Garfield, Subaru is notably able to manifest his authority of Sloth, or the invisible providence as it calls it. It's able to manifest an invisible hand that is about as strong as both his arms, and is completely invisible to almost everyone in the universe, and can be used as a way to surprise attack someone who has no idea that it's coming. Subaru can also, upon focus, make this hand completely intangible and do things such as destroying the vitals of a person like he did with Regulus's heart in Arc 5. The notable downside is that Subaru needs time to focus to be able to use the authority to be a decent level, and it's a heavy drain on his body that damages his soul, and it's not something he can use in quick succession without feeling drawback from the usage of it. Arc 5 for Subaru in a brief summary would be that Subaru now has access to his whip, which is a very adequate tool for acrobatics and parkour, and helps quite a lot for his movement, which he extensively used in his strategy to bait time against Regulus in the light novel, and is able to easily attack at speed that surpasses the speed of sound itself, and of course is now contracted with Beatrice, but we'll get into that slightly later on. Subaru was able to withstand the explosion of the magic stone while trying to negotiate with Kiritaga without any injury at all, which blew the entire reception room apart, which from the anime is also fairly extensive for a room. There's also just the insane endurance side, which I believe doesn't need much for an introduction, but we'll get into this slightly anyways. Subaru was completely fine even after basically having his internal organs getting completely burned when he had Ferris try to kill him during the Protagonists' possession, even when he was trying to resist his possession or him enduring his heart getting squeezed whenever he breaks the taboo for return by death. There is also the infamous Great Rabbit scene, where Subaru somehow managed to survive all of the rabbits eating him until his brain itself got eaten in the web novel, which is when he died despite all the rabbits consuming every part of his body from every direction. He was still somehow able to survive all of that. Some other general ability that we are probably not aware of is that Subaru can also regenerate his arms and legs, although only the specific ones where he infused with the dragon's blood, and there's not really a known time frame for how long this would take. Now that I've gone on and on about bombarding you with all the impressive things Subaru physically does, it's time we move on to someone else for some time. It would be pretty stupid to not mention Byako in this video, considering she is his spirit partner after all. And not considering the abilities of a great spirit into consideration would extremely narrow what Subaru can do. Although Beatrice is a great spirit, we must also take into consideration that being contracted with Subaru doesn't limit what she can do, as the mana she can use is dependent on Subaru, as she had to use a lot of mana during the end of Arc 4 to deal with the Great Rabbit. Beatrice stands with the title of a great spirit with extremely vast magical knowledge that has been taught to her by the Witch of Greed herself, and being the most proficient user of yin magic that is currently alive, even surpassing Roswaal when it comes to that particular element. There's not a short list of things Byako can do, but to summarize them all shortly, Beatrice has magic that mostly focuses on controlling time, gravity, centers gravity, and minds, as that is a focus on yin magic. Magic such as Minya can stop the time of the person it gets hit by, completely shattering their time and not allowing them to survive, even if they can regenerate most of the time, and she's capable of making these homing attacks that will continue to chase their target even after they move. Byako can also reduce or increase the effects of gravity, heal people as seen with Subaru, and even seal other characters with yin magic. It would be hard not to mention Shamak, considering Subaru's obsession with it, and it being an extremely useful spell given its ability to manipulate the senses, or even the awareness of other characters, up to even our Shamak, which can send a person or entity, like with the Great Rabbit, to a completely different dimension that makes it impossible for them to come out of. Although this has an extremely high mana requirement that Beatrice cannot fulfill most of the time, so it's a spell that is only used in extremely rare circumstances. Both Subaru and Beatrice also have special and original magic that they both created, which numbers in 3, of which one of them is still unknown and only one of them have ever been seen in the anime so far. So feel free to skip to this timestamp to avoid the spoiler. The first original magic as seen as used against Regulus is EMM, which allows both Subaru and Byako to sidestep from the world itself and exist outside of it, meaning for the short while that the magic is being used, they are completely invulnerable to almost any attacks that can be used on them. The application of this is similar to how Regulus's authority works by stopping the time for their own bodies. EMT is their second original magic. It is a form of absolute negation magic that in theory should make it so that any technique that is created through the use of mana should be completely negated when it's in range of EMT. It can, in theory, pay up extremely well with EMM, as EMM gives them absolute defense and EMT gives them absolute negation of mana. The third spell is currently unknown as stated earlier, so we'll have to stop here. Finally, the topic that I mostly wish to elaborate upon in this video, Return by Death. Normally, you'd assume I would have mentioned it earlier considering just how essential it is as an ability for Subaru and their story, but I did it on purpose as I believe this is the most important segment and thus deserves all the spotlight at the end. So what exactly defines being powerful? The most obvious or intuitive answer to this would obviously be the physical quality of being extremely strong. However, that isn't all what encompasses the term. I believe it also does logically extend to one's ability that aren't just a cause of pure strength, which is where Subaru's actual power comes from. Return by Death is a fairly simple concept. You are given the ability to retry once again after death as per the chosen checkpoint by the Witch of Envy. It gives a person the ability to achieve any possible outcome that is possible, as long as their willpower doesn't crumble in front of the mental degradation that the authority forces upon you. As the story has illustrated many times, it is both the greatest blessing and curse that Subaru has ever received. Whilst it does provide him the ability to rewrite the fate that he and the others should have succumbed to, it throws him into despair that he has to overcome with an inability to console anyone about the curse. Whilst all of the downsides of the authority certainly exist as pointed, we must also look at the other side of things. Natsuki Subaru at its core, as designed by Tappei, is supposed to be a character that is unable to use magic alone, cannot use a sword, cannot use physical force to overcome all that is thrown at him, and thus the only weapon he has at his core is his ability to never give up. Yes, Natsuki Subaru is fairly outclassed by most people in the world of ReZero. Subaru is not physically the strongest, he is not the smartest person, he is not the most capable person around him. He has various shortcomings. Return by Death obviously evens out a lot of this, but when alone, Subaru can only be so powerful, which is why Subaru is not at his strongest when he is solely just relying on his authority to return by death, but rather how he uses the life that he has been sacrificed with his reliance on the people he surrounds himself with. Subaru's learned time and time again that he is outclassed in this world by the strong, and that the best weapon at his hand cannot be used to its best potential if he tries to rely on it alone. Which is why, when at his strongest, Subaru has been able to defeat multiple sin archbishops of the witch cult, slay great witch beasts who have been rampaging since 400 years ago, and save the lives and hearts of many people and become a person who has never once lost a battle. That is the core of what makes Subaru one of the strongest characters in the show. His quality of never being able to give up, given an authority that allows an infinite amount of retries, and the quality of being able to trust and rely on his friends who trust that Subaru will be able to show them a path to victory. Natsuki Subaru can only be so strong because he wants a happy ending for everyone, being greedy enough to wish for a future that will save everyone that he wants to protect. As long as that greed exists, given the nature of his authority, Subaru will remain an opponent whom you cannot defeat as long as the chances of victory for Subaru remains above zero, and hence making him powerful in a different sense than others. Thanks to everyone who kept watching to the end, and hopefully this video was able to shed some light on my personal thoughts regarding Subaru and his abilities that I believe are somewhat overlooked, and how he's fairly strong in both the elementary sense and the overall influence he has on the series itself, as there's a few too many people who think he's just outright weak and that even they could beat up Subaru just because of some things he does. But if you enjoyed this, look forward to the outsmarting or intelligent side of Subaru, which I also believe are fairly overlooked. But for now, that's all.